Glasses off again. I always forget to do that. Oh, it looks like we're live, so people probably heard me say that. Go ahead.
We're real people. What's the big deal? What time do you have?
It's 10:59.
All right, we'll give it a few. Let people join. Welcome to those who've joined this week's episode of Life Matters. We'll get started in a few seconds here.
We should have background music. You know, I was thinking of Jeopardy. Okay, we're good. It's 11 o'clock.
All right, where we are. Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Life Matters TV. My name's Tommy Stoffel, and I'll introduce my friend and co-host David McLeod in a moment. This week we're going to talk about the title of the topic is "In is the Only Way Out." So we're going to have fun talking about what the heck that means here. And David, I'll turn it over to you. Say welcome and let you kick it off.
Well, thank you, Tommy. Good morning, everybody. David McLeod here, your rock and relationship coach and personal coach and facilitator speaker. I'm actually really excited about this topic because it's something that has been close to my heart for a long time. It hasn't always been obvious to me that I needed to look within to find answers that I was looking for. If I don't know, maybe you can relate to this. I know for myself, in much of my life, I always looked to other people, to the adults in my life when I was a kid, to my teachers, to the priests, to the ministers, to the politicians. I looked to other people to give me answers and give me truth. And what I've noticed about doing that is that often I've ended up in trouble, so to speak, because the answers that I get from other people don't necessarily resonate with what's going on in my heart and my soul. And so consequently, I end up doing things that aren't necessarily good for me. And it's been quite a few years for me to understand and to really get the idea that the only real source of truth for me is inside. And so I have to begin by going in, looking inward and reflecting on the truth of my own heart and soul in order to be able to know what's really right for me. And so that's where the terminology comes from. That's where the title comes from. In is the only way out. Because, you know, if I want to, I guess the idea being that if I want to get out of this trap that I somehow see myself in, then the only way I can do that is to go within. Does that kind of make sense, Tommy?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, and it makes no sense at all. So, but no, it does make perfect sense, David, and you hit some really heart-opening spots there. That you're right. We are taught to follow the leader, and we need to understand that the leader is actually within us. We have this inner sage, this inner knowing within us. We have this inner guru, some people call it. What happens and what happened to me was I couldn't hear it. Mm-hmm. I couldn't pay attention to it because something else was making too much freaking noise.
Yeah.
But the point is, yeah, we to really change, and we say this, you know, be the change we wish to see in the world. To really be the change, we need to change on the inside. And we've said this before. And when we change on the inside, that's when it will change our outside. Our outside, what happens to us and what goes on around us, does in fact change as we change ourselves. And hopefully we're improving ourselves, so therefore our outside improves as well.
Yeah. I know that as you're saying that, what I'm resonating with is when I do the work internally and I look into my heart and my soul and I listen for that really quiet voice, and I'm glad you pointed that out because that's what I need to do. I notice that I do have a very loud ego mind that really is trying to attract my attention and get me to do things its way. But sometimes I just have to settle it down, and the way I do that personally is just by doing a lot of meditation, a lot of sitting and just kind of being present with what's true right now. But what I notice about that, and when I do the inner reflection and I get to connect with my heart and soul and I begin to see who I really am, what really changes is how I then look at the outside world. The world itself hasn't really changed at all, but my way of accepting it and looking at it and being with it, that's what changes, and that's really an important piece, I think.
Yeah, that's a brilliant piece. It's looking at things through the other eye, or turning a cheek. Actually, that term actually refers to looking at the world with a different perspective. And that's exactly, you're right, David. That's exactly what happens when we do this work inside to, in some cases, quiet that mind, or in some places find a way to quiet it down enough to hear that inner voice, that inner intuition. It usually guides you in a different way to see what's going on outside, in a different way to see the world. Right, the world isn't so much changing, like you said, but we're just seeing it differently, and we're interacting with it differently. We're engaging the world differently. So, kind of getting a little esoteric there, but that's what happens. We see the world differently, and then we behave in the world differently, and the world then behaves differently for us. We get into these energy dynamics, but that's another topic for another day.
So it's kind of like being a ripple of change, because I think we're onto something pretty powerful here. As I change my perspective and start interacting with the world in a different way, then you're right, the world kind of reacts to me in a different way. So I am, in fact, changing the world around me, even though I may not see the change immediately, because I'm more interested in how I'm responding with it. But one thing I wanted to ask, Tommy, we talk a lot about doing this inner work, and I can see that some people might not know exactly what we mean by that. So maybe you can start us off and talk a little bit about what it means to do inner work.
Yeah, what a brilliant lead-in, David, and thanks for opening that door up, because what it means to go inside. What is inside? What does it mean to go in? Well, for me, what's in is how I think. That's part of what's in. And also, a part that we often neglect or don't pay enough attention to is how we feel. I sometimes joke with people. I say, yeah, and sometimes I use the F word. Feelings.
Yeah, right.
So it's how we feel, though. And when I say how I feel, there's emotions, and we pick up emotions in our life. We pick up, bad stuff happened to us. So we put that bad emotion, that bad memory, in our backpack of rocks, and we start hauling it around with us. And we go out through life, picking up all these emotions. Some great, wonderful emotions, but some nasty, negative, hard stuff. And we're never taught. I was never taught how to really let go of those emotions.
Yeah.
I was told, just get over it, cry if you need to, but, get over it. Yeah. And nobody ever taught me how to take those freaking rocks out of my bag and drop them, or drop the whole freaking bag.
That says a lot.
That's what is going inside about. It's going inside and helping clear up that crap.
Right. That says a lot right there, and I really resonate with that too. I think that you and I were both born in approximately the same time frame, so our parents were part of that generation where, they hadn't been taught how to really deal with their emotions. In fact, I think they were taught pretty much to shut them down and not to share them or deal with them at all. So consequently, when they had kids, they sure as hell didn't know how to teach us what to do. And
right.
And the problem with that is that we end up carrying around this painful stuff, not knowing how to deal with it, and then later on in life, it comes out in my case, it came out in like the form of a volcanic explosion that really could have caused some serious damage had it not been for the fact that I had been aware of some of this stuff coming up and managed to get myself into a safe place. And I know that your story is something similar to that, although your emotions came out in a different way. But I know that if we don't deal with them, if we don't allow these emotions to just flow through us and come out, then we're trapping them in our body. And like it or not, they're building up and building up and building up over time to the point where they can become extremely damaging.
Yeah.
So it's really, really important, as you say, to go inside. And I think personally, with the help of somebody who can facilitate this work, so that you can learn how to release it in a way that doesn't do anybody damage, and particularly doesn't do any damage to you personally as you're doing this work.
Yeah, and so that whole volcano kind of metaphor is right on, and some people don't ever explode, right? They just keep it capped, they keep it in, but think about what that's doing to us. We talk about having high stress, and we talk about getting overwhelmed. That's all because we've got this all bottled up inside of us, and it's not only impacting how we're thinking and how we're behaving and how we're acting, but it's actually can cause, we know stress causes illness and injury.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happens. It's building up inside of us, and it's just causing us over time more and more health issues will crop up, more and more pain and suffering will crop up, and then on top of that, we have this propensity to explode at some point, and I'm thinking of our friend Joanne, who talks about her stories, but
Yeah.
But I want to get one thing. You said it, and you said it brilliantly, that our parents didn't teach us. Well, no fault there. Our parents didn't teach us because their parents didn't teach them.
Right.
Because their parents didn't teach them. Because who knows where they started.
Mm-hmm.
But we as human beings haven't been good at dealing with our emotions for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's led to this overthinking heavy society that we're in that makes some really wacky, weird decisions.
That's right.
So it's so important to do this inner work, and it sounds freaking scary at first, right? Because you think, oh, I gotta go revisit all this crap, but there are people, there are books, there are courses. David teaches a wonderful program. I teach an amazing program, to put it, that does just this. Trains and teaches you how to go inside and how to start to clear up that stuff, that heaviness.
Yeah, and you're right. I think that a lot of people are really afraid of looking inside because they've spent so much time and energy holding it in or hiding it or trying not to express it and bother other people or whatever it is that they're doing, that they have built up this idea and this story in their mind that to do so is going to have a negative impact on the world, that to do so is somehow going to reveal them as shameful beings or something like that. So we make up this story that, and it's up here, the story is entirely in our heads, and the story is so strong that it keeps us from doing the work. The problem is well, it's not a problem. The thing is, what I've learned is that the moment I started releasing this pent-up energy, even though I had people around me who were witnessing, there was a huge release and relief that took place. But the other thing that surprised the hell out of me was that the people who witnessed me, they weren't judging me. They weren't shaming me. They weren't making me feel bad for doing what I did. On the contrary, they were very open, accepting, welcoming, and saying, wow, man, that's good. Thank you so much for doing that. It gave me permission to do the same thing. It's amazingly powerful.
It is amazingly powerful. And whether you're talking about opening up with a coach or an advisor or a teacher, or whether you just know somebody who's kind of in that same place in life together, that opening up. Another thing that pops up in our heads besides the fear, is, one of the fears is, oh, I'm going to appear to be weak, especially the man, right? I'm going to appear weak if I get all touchy-feely and all the stupid words that we have that block us, that our brain says, don't go there, don't go there. Our freaking brain is telling us not to go there because what you're doing is you're actually putting your crazy mind on notice.
Mm-hmm.
That its time is coming to an end of running this boat.
That's right.
Our mind ran a mutiny sometime in history, and it took over the freaking ship, and it took the captain who has a sense of knowing of where to go in life, what the right decisions are, this inner sage, and they bound and gagged him or her and threw him or her in the brig, and now there's a bunch of crazy pirates on board running your ship.
That's right. And all of those pirates are immature, underdeveloped parts of ourselves that have no clue what they're doing.
They worry a lot. They're afraid of a lot. They judge a lot. They compare a lot. They do a lot of crazy stuff up on board, on deck.
Right, and those are the parts that started us on this whole voyage of approvalitis that you talk about so much.
Yeah, they're all up there worried about who's looking at them and who's going to approve them or who's going to, think that they're being silly.
Right.
It's a crazy mess up in our heads, unfortunately.
Right.
But it's it takes strength and it takes power and it takes courage to face that, to stop. It's not out there, right? The problems are not out there. We keep saying this and we'll keep saying it. It's not the problems out there that need to be fixed or changed or paid off or divorced. It's the negative thoughts and these feelings inside of us, these negative feelings that need to be fixed and changed and paid off, and in some cases divorced. So,
right. Yeah. No, that's really a good point. I think it is true that I may have the thought that something outside of me needs to change, but I think the other piece that's true is that I need to look inside and find a truthful way of accepting and embracing whatever it is that I'm looking at. Then once I've done that and I've done my own inner work around it, I may choose to go outside and actively find a way to change that thing that was bothering me before. But until I recognize that there's something within me that needs to be healed, going out and trying to change something outside of me isn't going to solve any problems at all.
Yeah, it's sometimes a hard pill to swallow, but sometimes you need to chew on this bitter pill and realize the simple truth that we need to do the work ourselves. There's no other way around it. There's no shortcut. There are, depending on the teacher you find, there might be a quicker path to it, but we've got to do the work. I haven't found the magic pill yet. I haven't been able to snap my finger yet and make people better. And some people, get it faster than others, but it takes work, and it takes dedicated work, and it takes, as a friend and I were just talking about, it takes repetitive work and getting a routine around it too, like something you need to do a little bit of each day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, and I think that what you're touching on is one of the subjects that I'm very, very fascinated with, and that's the whole notion of the shadow, i.e., those parts of ourselves that we choose not to look at. We try to hide so other people won't see them. But foolishly, we believe that other people can't see them, and in fact, everybody sees all our shadows beautifully. That's the nature of shadow, by the way. I can see your shadows far more easily than I can see my own. But the point I'm trying to make is that sometimes, even when I figure out what a shadow is and how it's behaving and how it's impacting my life and how it's not really serving me, or how I imagine it is serving me, until I get the clarity on that and I do the work on that little part of myself, it's going to continue working in the background and running my life sideways, and it's going to keep doing things. Once I shed some light on it and start doing some healing work on it, that doesn't mean that shadow necessarily goes away permanently. It might, although I kind of doubt it. It's just like a little miniature part of myself, a little childlike part of myself that just wants some love and attention. And every once in a while, if I don't give it the love and attention, it's going to act out. So I have to come back and revisit that part of myself and say, okay, I still love you, and nothing has changed, and I have to do that. So it's really a case of what I would call self-parenting. I'm actually parenting myself and all those little parts so that they can stop acting out in ways that don't serve me. That's really what I think we're talking about here.
Yeah, that's a way to go about it. To bring them into awareness is exactly what you said and exactly what needs to happen. What I find too is that when we bring these things into awareness, these negative thoughts or these negative emotions, when we bring them into our awareness, just that itself is so powerful. Mm-hmm. It's part of our inner sage, our inner knowing. It's part of our inner being. It's part of that captain that's stuck down in the brig until you take the blindfold and the gag off. But once you start doing that awareness, when you look at something that you've not even thought about, but it's been kind of nagging at your life, and it makes you make weird decisions, and you're not making great decisions. And when you look and say, what's causing that? And you go find, in this case, an element of your shadow. What usually happens, David? This awareness is like some giant flashlight, and you shine this flashlight on this thing, and it's almost like you flick a light on when you go into a room, and the darkness goes away.
Yeah.
Without a lot of effort. There's an element of that where it just the awareness can release a good part of some of that stuff that holds us back.
Yeah. Well, I think, coming down the pike, one of our future episodes, I know we're going to be talking about shadow in a lot more detail, but I think this is really good to get, just to bring some awareness around the whole notion of shadow, because we all have them. No matter how much work we do, no matter how much enlightenment processing I go through, I still have shadow parts of myself that still want to act out. I still have an ego mind that wants to control things. And I have to keep coming back and saying, thank you so much for your beautiful and wonderful suggestion. I know you're just trying to keep me safe and sane and secure in the world, but you know, I got it. I got it handled, and I don't need to worry about that right now. Thank you. And please keep watching out for all those dangerous monsters, because I know that's what you do best. I mean, I have found that to be a really powerful way of dealing with my ego mind. And I don't know about you, but that's worked for me.
Yeah, that sounds like a lovely practice, and maybe something that you can explain to the audience to help them put that into practice this week. But you're right on. That bring that up and not trying, and giving it some awareness and giving it some, bringing it into focus. And I love that you say you thank it, because there are parts of our mind that are there to protect us from things. I sometimes try to get into this mode where if I'm trying to make a big decision, I'll think about it for a very brief period of time, and then I'll try to get quiet. Like you said, you get into that still place where you thank your mind, you say, okay, I thank you for all your inputs, and then you get quiet and you see what it feels like. And you try to, Kristen talked about this last week, right? Mm-hmm. That she trusts how to feel things, how things, does this decision feel calm and peaceful? Mm-hmm. And this is a good practice to get into, to kind of feel, does this feel calm and peaceful? And that's what I mean when I say you trust your inner sage, you trust that inner sense of knowing, you trust that inner captain again, and bring them back into, give them their seat in the airplane. There's a pilot seat and a co-pilot seat.
Right.
Our mind is kind of our co-pilot that's supposed to be there to solve problems and to do things and to push buttons and to fuel the jet and all that stuff. And the pilot kind of knows where the plane's supposed to go, what direction, what heading, what the long-range plan is for where it's going. And we need to get those two elements of ourselves back in balance, back in harmony.
Yeah. You mentioned, or you highlighted my phrase, the thanking part. And I actually think that gratitude is probably one of the most powerful forces available to us. What's difficult for a lot of people to imagine is how do I express gratitude for something that seems so horrific or bad or awful in my life? I mean, think of something like I don't know. Well, there was just a bunch of people killed in Santa Barbara recently. A bunch of students down in Santa Barbara University. How is it possible to feel gratitude for something like that? Especially if you happen to be a parent of one of those children. It would be extremely difficult. It's the body and the mind are fighting and saying this is an evil, horrible thing that happened. And yet, maybe in the grand scheme of things, there's a way for us to be grateful for it because it brings into awareness something else that we wouldn't have seen otherwise. I don't know the answer here. I'm not trying to take away from the pain that people will have when they experience something like that. But I think that no matter what happens in our world, there is a way for us to find our center by coming back to gratitude for whatever is showing up. And it's a difficult practice, but it's something I think we all need to do.
Yeah, that one's deep, David, and that it takes a while to get to that place of gratitude in all situations. It's easy to be grateful for the good things and the teachings and the awarenesses and the wake-ups. To that particular story, though, it highlights. I mean, that story highlights the crazy stuff that we do in the name of our thoughts.
Yeah.
The name of the ship that's being run by, I jokingly call them a bunch of crazy pirates, but our mind is out of control in a lot of cases, and that's a hard thing to swallow. And people who are listening, their mind's going, oh, fuck you, I don't want to hear about that. And they're shutting down their computer, or they're running in a different direction. But
that's right.
But I'm not talking to your mind. I'm talking to your soul right now. I'm talking to the you that knows that this is the truth.
Yeah.
And these cases in the world where this bad stuff happens are just more cases of, okay, we've got to do something big. We've got to do something to help our minds in a grander scale, get our heads under control, get our pilot back in the pilot seat, and get our lives back in a restorative place, as opposed to this place where we're always causing trouble in ourselves and in the world.
Yeah. Well, the idea of gratitude in that way, I think, is also totally in alignment with the teaching that's attributed to Jesus that said, love your enemy. I mean, think about this for a minute. Most of us, as you say, it's easy to be grateful for the things that we classify as good. And it's also easy to love our friends and the people that make us feel good in our lives. But how easy is it to love those people who are supposedly causing us pain? I mean, we live in a world where there's these unnamed terrorists all over the world. What would happen if we all learned to love terrorists? Now, I don't mean to say we appreciate what they do or anything like that, but what if we were sending them the energy of love instead of this energy of fear and hatred? It's fear and hatred that's causing the problem in the first place. How the hell can we solve the problem by continuing to be afraid and to be hating? That doesn't make any sense to me. So we have to get inside. We have to find that place of compassion. We have to find that place of gratitude. Because if we don't do it, we're just contributing to the problem.
Yeah, you're so right, David. So right. And fighting fire with fire doesn't work anymore. It's like throwing gasoline on the flames. It's not the way to go. Right. We need to bring the peace into the situation, and that peace is very powerful. Some people think, oh, you get peaceful, you get stepped on, you get squashed. Not at all. Right? It's just the opposite. And in that, and also, so I want to touch upon the gratitude again, because it's a great topic to kind of take this session into and kind of bring to a head. And we look at it too. Jesus said, yeah, love your enemies. Well, how do you do that? Well, one way to do that is understand that your enemies are also your teachers. Mm-hmm. They're teaching you things maybe that you don't want to do, or they're teaching you behaviors that you maybe feel inside yourself that you need to overcome. Yeah, that's good. So in that sense too, everybody's a teacher, and whether it's a lovely person telling you wonderful things that help you aspire, or whether it's horrible things that happen on the planet, there's still lessons in there. Things that we can gain, insights we can gain, and things we can learn from that. And
that's a really great point there, Tommy. Talking about these so-called enemies being my teachers. I mean, that's exactly right. This is part of what I teach. I mean, I teach it in a different way using different language, but essentially, what I've noticed about myself and about other people is that I tend to project onto other people those parts of myself that I don't want to look at. So if I see someone else as being an arrogant person, or a mean person, or even a killer or a murderer, there's an opportunity for me to look inside and say, okay, so where's the arrogant part of me? Where's the mean part of me that I'm really not wanting to look at? Where is the murderer in me? Oh my God, just saying that. And I'm sure that there's a part of me that is capable of killing, of doing murder. I may have even been through many lives in my history, and who knows, maybe in one of my prior lives that's exactly what I did, and maybe that's what I'm resonating with. I don't really know, but I think you're absolutely right. It's all about recognizing those things we don't like as parts of ourselves that need to be healed, and those are just kind of shadow parts that I think that we just need to bring some awareness to.
Yep. So we talked earlier before the show about like what kind of an exercise to give the audience, and we said, oh, we'll figure it out as we get there. And I think you just said it. I think you just pointed at something that is maybe a good exercise for people to do. I call it pushing buttons, and it's when I feel something, when I see something going on in the world, or somebody acts a certain way around me, or even towards me, and it hurts me, or sometimes feels like emotionally it's causing me struggle or pain or anger. That's my button. Mm-hmm. It's up to me to look inside and to figure out what's causing that button to be pushed. Uh-huh. What happened to me inside, and so that may be something just to bring some awareness to this week, is when you feel something getting pushed, a button getting pushed, pause and understand that there's something inside you that you probably use some looking and some healing and some working on.
Yeah, that's a great idea. It sounds like almost a meditative practice.
It definitely is a practice. You can do it in meditation and think through things that have happened, or you can just, if you're get good, you can walk around the world and feel it, and just make sure you don't start firing things back at people. This is not about outside. It's about going inside.
As you were talking about that, I noticed that one way that I find that I do get triggered fairly easily. This is some area that I still need to work on. Whenever I'm driving, I find that it's so easy for me to have judgments about other drivers out there. I have this story in my head. I'm the world's best driver, and nobody drives as well as I do. Everybody else is an idiot, and I'm the only smart guy out there. I don't know if you've ever had that experience, but I know I do. And so that is a great way for me to start going within and just look at, okay, what's that really all about for me? Maybe some of our audience can relate to that and use that as a trigger point, as a way of saying, this is where my buttons get pushed.
David, driving is a brilliant meditation, and we'll leave the audience with that because I think we're at the bottom of the hour here. That's a fantastic meditation to work on, and I do it myself. My driving, I watch myself when I drive, and I see what happens and bubbles up. How important am I? So yeah, the fantastic thing to leave them with. Why don't you go ahead and tell them what's going to happen next week, since I'm not going to be able to be here next week.
Right. Yeah. So folks, Tommy, as he just mentioned, he's got another engagement and can't join us next week. So I am looking for a special guest, and I got a couple of people on the list. Unfortunately, no one has confirmed yet. So what's going to happen is next week is going to be a surprise topic and a surprise guest. So hope you will join us, and thank you for being with us today. Take care, Tommy.
See you, David. Thanks, everybody.
Okay.